So welcome everyone to Thoughts on Thursday. This week we're going to be talking about sustainability, and this is the second time as a group we've covered this. We're a much bigger community now, and I think the world's moved on 12 months. We're thinking much more of a recovery, so it feels like the absolute perfect time. Everyone talks about this reset of hospitality and certain trends being here to stay. Is sustainability one we can really embrace? Can we actually have that reset that the industry wants? Is a kind of hot topic, I think, for the group. So really excited to have two fabulous speakers in that space to discuss it with us. Before I hand over, just if you haven't been to Thoughts on Thursday before, the idea is this is a really inclusive discussion. It's really designed to generate what we call mentoring moments, which is just opportunities for members of the community to speak up, share ideas, gain knowledge. You may meet someone who you think, oh, that's fab, I really want to connect with them on Atollo. Maybe that would make a great mentor. Maybe just a quick virtual meetup with someone who shares similar interests. So I'm hoping, I'm speaking on behalf of our host, saying I know that Raquel and Radhika would love to see you on Atollo if you have any follow-up questions for them. And I'll talk a little bit more about something we're doing with Raquel in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, absolutely use this as a chance to kind of find interesting people in the group. And obviously, please ask away. It's a discussion. So I know Raquel and Radhika are really excited to get your questions. If you want to fire questions into the chat, then to everyone, then I'll call on you to ask them. If you feel a bit nervous or don't really fancy speaking up, just message me privately and I'll ask a question on your behalf. No problem at all. We love people to participate, but totally get some people want to sit back and just kind of listen in. That's absolutely fine. So we'll run till about 6 UK time. Hope that works for everyone. And we will get stuck into it. So I am delighted to have Raquel and Radhika here tonight to guide us through the discussion on sustainability. Raquel leads a consultancy working directly with hotels in the space, and Radhika, after a great stint in hotels, is now podcasting in this space. So I've met just a ton of people over the last few months who are experts in the field. So I will let them do introductions themselves and kind of share their thoughts on the world. Radhika, over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, James. Can anyone hear me? Going well, right?
Yeah.
Good. Lovely. Everything works. Technology works. Great start. And great for starting this Thoughts on Thursday. It's brilliant, James. Loving it. So, sustainability. I think, as James mentioned, I've taken after the career in hospitality, doing a podcast was new for me. But actually, I think the reason for me starting, the why for me was really all about in 2019, I went on a holiday before the pandemic, and I think I witnessed firsthand the dying of coral reefs in Bali. And I think when you witness something at first hand, it just awakens something in you. And I kind of wondered, I felt like I've come to a party and the party has ended. And it kind of makes you wonder, so what about my kids? And I have two young kids. So that kind of scares me. And it's kind of like, I need to do something beyond do my day job. And I've made lifestyle changes. And along with it came the thought of, I need to do something beyond this. And if I can do it at home, why can't we do it at a hotel level? And that's when, and I watched Game of Thrones and I love few characters in the Game of Thrones series. And one particular one is Tyrion Lannister. And the famous dialogue is what unites people. It's not flags or goals, it's stories. And I think that kind of stuck with me. And that's how I've put together sustainability stories. So you get a pack, you get per episode one story, and hopefully we break it down for you and we tell you in a nice manner that you can see how are we driving in sustainability. So hi, I'm Radhika Arapalli, and I have a podcast for sustainability stories. And what do we do there? Why hospitality? Think living in Middle East, I've seen food waste. I've seen food waste, which is unimaginable. For those who don't know, I've dialed in from Dubai. I live in the Middle East. So food waste is something which is of great concern for me, and especially because if you look at UK alone, we have billions of food wasted every year, billions worth of food, and millions of people are still malnourished. It's such a paradoxical thing that we have. And I think if you look all around, everything sometimes is like a problem so unique to our times. And I think that's exactly what we're going to address, like, pick up stories where people are doing something which is beyond short term profits, where people are working or businesses are working for people, planets, and profits, and share. And hopefully, through the podcast, through the stories, we inspire and challenge you to think beyond your day job to say, That's my 5 minutes. I do have one last one to say. We are not, sustainability is a broad subject. I studied last year. I went to Cambridge. I did a course. I wanted to understand what's the latest, but we're not going to have all the answers. But what we promise you is if we don't have anything, we'll take it down and come back to you. But what's essential is we keep the dialogue open. So keep pouring in the questions, because I think as an industry, there's so much more we can do, and we just need to get the dialogue right and get the momentum going. I think that's
Perfect.
6 minutes.
Nice one. Thanks, Radhika. Hey, we're not that strict around here. That's great.
Uh,
Raquel, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. It's amazing that we get to talk to people that are interested in this subject, because sometimes I feel that we all people about that we speak about sustainability, we speak to each other a lot, and we forget that it's the other people that want to learn about it that we need to speak to. So just picking up from Radhika there, I think it was very interesting that you said that you made changes to your own life to be more sustainable, and the other point was that sustainability is such a broad subject, and it is, and I think that's probably one of the problems that we have is such a broad subject that it becomes this sort of undoable thing, because you cannot know everything about everything. So I guess this is why 50 Shades Greener, which is the consultancy and educational company that I run here in Ireland, we concentrate on environmental sustainability. We educate people on how to effectively change their own behavior around the use of energy, water, and production of waste. We teach what I think are vital skills that allow people to measure, manage, and reduce the use of utilities. And in turn, that reduces their carbon emissions. And what's even better from a business point of view is that it actually saves you a lot of money. And a lot of the general managers or hotel owners I meet every week, they have this concept that sustainability is going to cost them a lot of money. And to me, it's the actual opposite. It's savings for your business, it's savings for your pocket, and it's savings for the planet as well. So we try and enable people to manage their own carbon emissions, because we want to create a society in 10, 20 years' time that is aware of its own environmental impact. And I feel that with knowledge, when you have that knowledge, that's what happened to me when I started having that knowledge of what my own impact was. That's when I felt empowered to do something about it. And it goes into the whole area of personal responsibility towards climate change. I actually saw a really interesting TED Talk last week. If anybody wants it, is Clover Hogan. She's an Australian activist. And she said, climate change is not your responsibility because it's outside of your control. But what's your responsibility are the things that are inside of your control. And we all have some sort of level of control over what we do in our lives, the items we purchase, the electricity that we pay for, how we use it, that can actually reduce our carbon emissions. So we mainly concentrate on educational programs for the hospitality industry, but we've also launched the secondary schools program because, as I said, it's very important to teach people from a very young age. I have this dream that in 10 years' time, there will be environmental education programs from primary school, secondary school, and higher level education, because that's the only way that it's going to become embedded into our DNA. I think every child, every teenager in the world should be able to calculate what their own home carbon emissions are. And that in turn will allow them to have that empowerment to reduce them, I guess. So we also firmly believe that everything we teach needs to be pragmatic and action-based. So, we were talking before everyone joined in about different standards around the world on sustainability, like ISO 14100 and 2120. And, to me, we need to make environmental sustainability easy for every single person to understand. And that's what we try and do and teach people, is that very, very clear, small steps everybody can take that would generate big results. And big results are generated when we all take one small action and is taken by many, many people in society. I worked with clients, for example, into the hospitality industry, and I see Onya Martin has joined us here from Hotel Doolan. Hotel Doolan was the first carbon neutral hotel in Ireland, and their whole journey started in 2012. And it started with very small steps, very small changes to our daily routines and our own behaviour towards the use of utilities in the hotel. Then we utilized the savings we had generated to invest on capital projects like changing our heating system. And then that led the hotels to be a carbon neutral hotel. And I'm always a firm believer that if one person can do it, if one hotel can do it, so can every other hotel in the country. So if Hotel Dublin has achieved that, there is no reason why every other hotel couldn't do it. And when I talk about small changes, I mean, I'm talking very small changes. Say, for example, in Hotel Dublin, when we first started in 2012, or I realized that our main oven used 38 kilowatt hours of electricity. And then it was easy for me to calculate with that data that if I was to turn off that oven for just 1 extra hour a day, that we would save 2,000 euros in 1 year and reduce our energy consumption by 14,000 kilowatts. And that was just one oven for 1 hour. So for me, environmental sustainability, it's all about becoming resource efficient. Reduce your energy waste and water. It will save you money. It will reduce your carbon emissions. It's a win-win situation for everybody. And I just want every single person in the world, I guess, to know all those small things, to know how to measure their carbon emissions and to take active steps in their life to reduce those. So I'm only 5 minutes. That was great.
Perfect. Thanks both. I'm reeling. I've never had anyone actually stick to time before, so that's fab. No. So someone's asked me a question, which is what's held us back? So why? I guess what they mean is, why hasn't this happened until now? You make it sound so simple, Raquel. Like what's held hotels back from leaping on this over the last 5-10 years, when potentially we've all been much more aware of what's going on?
Do you mind if I go first, Radhika?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so having worked with hotel owners and managers, one is, the first thing is, I find behavioral change is the hardest thing to do. It's much easier to change other things than your own behavior, because we are conditioned by the things we have learned and that we know for years and years in our lives. And so to be told that there is different ways that you can do your job, in the same way as before, but just with an added commitment to environmental sustainability, that's hard to hear. Not only hard to hear, but hard to assimilate, I guess, or to actually agree to and undertake. With the hospitality industry, I've worked in it all my life. I came into it when I was 17 and I'm 40 now. So I've worked in the industry for over 23 years, and it's such a fast life. You all know that. You've so much to do. The customer in front of you is your first priority. Probably your supervisor and your manager are your second priority. And so, it's very difficult to actually take time out of your job to learn something new and to train other people in doing something new. And I think that's kind of, what has to stop the industry being such a life pace. But I do think that one good thing has come out of coronavirus is that we all have time now. We all have time to learn. We all have time to upskill. And there is, this year is still going to be a slow in business for many people in hospitality. So I firmly believe we sort of creating this perfect storm for people to get more involved in sustainability and learn more. And I hope that will be the case. But there is still it's still quite slow from hospitality businesses to engage in this kind of talk. And this is why it's amazing to see a group of people that are interested in it.
No, definitely. I think. Sorry,
Yeah.
Radhika, over to you.
No, I was saying, I think behavior, and also because we've always been looking at short term. I think when we look at our targets, when we look at KPIs that the industry has, it's always been quite short term. What do we get in years? And I think that's been one of the changes too. The second one is also, if I think broadly about the way the setup is, we tend to have quite people with varied interest. You have your operator, you have an investor who is your owner, and then you have the hotel team. So these are three different entities coming together to form one hotel running. And you have to have all of these parties aligned for sustainability to work. And I think that seems to be one of the challenges too that we have in the industry.
Yeah, really interesting. No, I love both those points. I think really comes down to, as well, we're such an SOS industry, aren't we? We're so busy. We resource hotels just enough to keep them alive, and we never have that extra role to pick up projects like this. It feels like, hey, we're just too busy to, figure out the plan. And maybe that is why this reset's so essential. But also, yeah, totally agree. The fragmentation of ownership makes it really tricky. No, really interesting points. Kat, over to you.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for your time today. Really excited for this conversation. So this question is directed at both of you. So Radhika, based on the guests that you've had on your podcast, and Raquel, based on your hospitality clients, have you seen any sustainability trends that are starting to be picked up by the wider hospitality industry at the moment?
You want to go first, Radhika?
Yeah, I could go first. Yeah, I think energy efficiency is one that's slowly being picked up. I think everyone's realizing, we were quite stuck in LED lighting and that was it a few years ago. But I think slowly people are realizing with existing buildings and new buildings that there's so much more that we could do with energy efficiency, be it with the fittings that we change, with the appliances that we have, or the payback period that we get from energy efficiency, because technology is improved. And I think the knowledge about it, it was there, but maybe the knowledge of it and the know-how of, how could we get more, like Raquel said, it's all about being resource efficient. And especially I think in energy space, we seem to get a lot more going with solar panels coming up now. And I think that's one big trend I'm starting to see.
Nice.
For me, trends, and I hate to start on a negative, but there has been a huge trend in the last 12 months for not only hotels, but many corporations having what we call now sustainability policies or environmental policies. And that seems to be widespread across all industries, including hotels. And I often, when I'm researching, if I'm going to meet a client, I often research and look at their website and look at what they do. And many of them have an environmental policy. But what they fail to have is the plan to back up that policy. And the policy without a plan are just words written on a piece of paper. They don't mean anything. So yeah, I think the whole greenwashing has really risen in the last couple of years. And I guess that's people do realize that people are interested in sustainability and people want the industries to, to take charge and to start reducing their own carbon emissions. But because of that lack of knowledge, perhaps, people don't know what they need to do and they just go and write a policy and put it up for the world to see. But I also feel the whole no plastic movement has gained a lot of momentum in the last few years, and unfortunately the hospitality industry it's one of the biggest culprits when it comes to single-use room amenities, starting with those mini shampoos and all. I still I went to a hotel room in Spain a year or 2 years ago, and I counted 36 pieces of single-use plastic in amenities. I mean, there was toothbrushes, hair combs, a sewing kit. I don't know why I need a sewing kit when I'm staying in a hotel for a couple of nights, but there you have it. So the whole no plastic has gained a lot of momentum, and that's a really welcome thing to see, I guess. Yeah, there's a lot of hotels now switching to like the bulk toiletries rather than the mini ones, and really making a pledge for no plastic. There should be no room for single-use plastics really in our lives, other than medical devices maybe.
And I guess a lot of worries maybe taking a step back on that a little bit. Oh, people might mute. People taking, with COVID, maybe taking a step back because actually a load more have been reintroduced, haven't they? Around, a remote control in a plastic bag and wraps on things. So that could be worrying. And I think some countries are definitely worse than others, right? I think you go to the US and just that, you still get foam, single-use cups, styrofoam, and that kind of stuff. It's really clear to see. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so kind of energy and waste we're hearing. Colin, you got a question?
Make sure the mute comes off. Hi, James. Hi, everyone. You look at the breadth of sustainable development goals. There's 17 of them. You kind of look at what people are doing, the kind of alliances that form. You think, well, to what degree are you sort of navigating a fine line between acting in against antitrust and anti-competitively versus sharing best practice? So it's a tough one. Obviously, you probably can't address it within this forum. It's probably a regulatory issue, but do you ever come across that at all, basically, from people who are sort of playing in the sustainability space, and they obviously the target environments in which they're looking to deliver benefit into?
Colin, actually, do you have an example for it? Like, do you see it specific to any particular thing?
Well, gosh, I mean, you look at there's one massive alliance at the moment, isn't there? Basically accommodating for quite a substantial chunk of hotel rooms, and I think they've named 4 particular strands at which they're going to work on. Whereas, gender equality is there, responsible consumption is there, building partnerships, the whole 17. So I just kind of question, I guess, obviously good health and well-being is one of them, which is on the agenda. States are committed to them 2015 to 2030. Obviously, you've got D&I as well, and equality. States have signed up to certain conventions and equality laws flowing down. So I guess you kind of think, well, why would you choose those particular threads to sort of concentrate on, and to what degree are you actually acting competitively in a competitive market versus not doing so? We're obviously there's anti-compete laws in on statutes as well, so it's a complex question. So I just wondered if anyone had a view on it, basically.
And what's your concern, Colin, that if people start sharing ideas, they're behaving anti-competitively? So they talk about how we're going to tackle D&I as an industry, how we're going to tackle food waste as an industry. They may stumble on topics they shouldn't be kind of chatting about.
No, I guess it's the whole thing of perfect competition, isn't it? Basically, if you've done your economics, you kind of think about, well, what's oligopoly, what's a monopoly, what's duopoly. To what degree are you acting in perfect competition, and coincidentally zeroing on the common topics to talk about versus actually actively colluding on how we're going to actually manipulate supply markets and consumer.
Oh, I think we're losing you a bit there. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share my perspective while Raquel and Radhika kind of warm up. But I think for me, the hospitality industry is so fragmented, right? With hundreds of thousands of different properties, small business owners acting independently. Even Marriott have I don't think they've got 1 or 2% share of the market. So I think we are miles away, even our most concentrated markets, from having anything like an oligopoly. So I think we'll be very, very safe. I also think if you look at where all the hotels compete, they all compete on top line. They all compete on guest experience, on new ways to drive revenues, on book with us direct. And actually none of the brands really offer a lot around things like cost efficiency, around things like sustainability. So my hunch is that, if several hotel leaders got together and formed an informal advisory board to share best practices on actually how do we elevate some of these topics, I think you could get into some really interesting topics without colluding. And I think actually that should be encouraged. Again, maybe your expertise, you can be like, that just doesn't work. But one of the things we've seen on Atollo in the last year is, a general manager in Cape Town being like, this is how I innovated, and a general manager in London or New York being like, that's brilliant, I'm going to grab that for my hotel as well. So I think we're such a fragmented industry across every country in the world. We're probably not doing enough actually just to share knowledge and take steps forward. We probably have a long way to go before anyone would say this is anti-competitive or colluding. But I will turn over to our guests to see if they've got specific examples on this space, and then Colin can get your response to that.
And sorry, it did take me a while to warm up to the question. I wasn't 100% sure I understood the question right, and around this whole thing of being competitive or having areas of competition. I think when it comes to sustainability or climate change, I would never view anybody, even other consultancy or educational companies out there, I would never view it as competition. I've always believed on a collaboration way of really tackling climate change rather than compete. And there is a really good example here in Ireland. We have just on my doorstep here is the Burren, which is an area of amazing landscapes and geology. And within that, there is possibly about 100 tourism hospitality businesses in it, and 65 of them created this network 10 years ago. And that's all they do: share ideas, share knowledge. Hotel Doolin is part of it. We've Bonnie Martin here that can tell us more about it. But the Burren Tourism Network have collaborated for 10 years to elevate the destination. And it's not about marketing each person on their own with their eco credentials. It's about marketing and elevating the whole destination in a collaborative way, rather than feeling that they are competition. And that took a long time to form. I mean, we're at it 10 years. I've worked with them for 7 of those 10 years. And, it wasn't always easy. And at the very beginning, back in 2008, actually, so it's 12 years, 13 years, back in 2008, most of the initial table discussions were around that whole, well, I have this idea and I'm not going to share it with them because they're my competition. But that all changed over time when business owners and managers started creating relationships, and they are so much better off as a destination to be working in that collaborative way. And I think it's the same for sustainability. You know, there's no reason, Hotel Doolin is the first carbon neutral hotel in Ireland. Now another hotel in that same network is carbon neutral as well, and Hotel Doolin are championing them on that. You know, it's really about learning from each other for the greater good, I guess, in the future. That thinking of it as a competition.
No, definitely. And in thought, when you talk about, is there an echo in my voice?
A little bit. Just trying to see where it's coming from. Keep
Little
talking, and if everyone could just mute if you're not asking questions. Go for it.
I think I would say we seem to have some lofty targets. I mean, we are looking at 90% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2040, right, compared to 2010. Now, to do this, I think we just need loads of best practices being shared. Otherwise, we are nowhere near. We're lagging already by the chance of it. And we're nowhere near to going it if we believed in competition and running on our own.
Yeah.
And some of the big targets, leave alone greenhouse gases. Like, this is the month of March, International Women's Day. I mean, gender parity. I think I was really surprised to read from the World Economic Forum the statement that in our lifetime, we are never going to see gender equality. So I think it just goes to show that, I think we just need lots of collaboration, a lot more ideas to say, how do we break that ceiling? How do we get more things going for everyone and inclusivity? So, yeah, I think we have another challenge rather than the challenge that we're talking about, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I guess, and the last point I'd make on this is it's so hard for the consumers to shop the hospitality industry in a sustainable way. The OTAs don't have any consistent way of talking about hotels being sustainable. So actually a little bit more alignment around what some of these standards are would be great for the industry to nail. Again, we probably don't want to be led by Booking.com and Expedia, who say this is what sustainability is. It's a checkbox exercise. It probably should be a conversation the hoteliers lead. So yeah, interesting one. Colin, I don't know if that answers your question or gives you a fresh perspective.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, it's a bigger question, isn't it, around greenwashing and the flow downs of SDGs, and there's obviously bigger events around Black Lives Matter and diversity and inclusion, etc. I just think, well, to what degree you've actually chosen these particular threads when there's a lot of 17 goals, and where are those 17 goals in your corporate accounts, flow downs and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's a bigger question which I'm having conversations with. So I just wonder what the views of this panel were.
Yeah, huge topic. And again, I think actually, Anita, you've got a great point you wanted to make about it not just being the environment. Did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, valid point.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for setting this up, Otolo. And so, yeah, basically, I mean, right now we're just talking about the environment. And to be honest, in general, when you research about sustainability, the main topic at the top of everything comes out as being the environment, how you can protect it and how you can become vegan, etc., or how this hotel serves something without plastic and things like this. However, then sustainability, we learn at uni that it's not just about the environment, but it's about the actual social and economic pillars of a country, etc. So why is there still such a big focus on the environment, where I know that there's global pressure with Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, etc. But I think it should be very important to focus on the other sides as well, because then in the hospitality industry you have loads of issues with like mental health. We did it a few weeks back here on Otolo, and people are underpaid. The economy of the local destination is not benefiting from the tourism industry. So how do you think this is going to evolve? Is this going to be a main focus now and in a foreseeable future, or what are your thoughts on this?
I love that question. So yeah, how do we make sure we tackle everything to the extent it needs to be? And I suppose what role does the environment play within that broader agenda? No, that's fab. Radhika, Raquel, who'd like to say that one first?
I go first if you want. I guess I did kind of touch on it in the sense earlier that sustainability encompasses so many things. It's such a broad subject. It's not just about the environment. What we teach in 50 Shades Greener is environmental sustainability, but there is so much more than that, and mental health, well-being, all those things need to play a part, because sustainability simply means to be able to sustain into the future without jeopardizing the same chance for future generations. And for that, we need to fix so many things. And I guess it comes to the, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you have to cut it in small pieces because it's too big otherwise. And it's kind of, I make the same analogy for sustainability. You need to be able to break it down into smaller pieces and tackle one at a time. Otherwise, it becomes an impossible task. So you kind of start with one area, and each business, each industry, each person will tackle different areas at different speeds and at different times, because obviously you're always going to go for something that you're more interested in, or that has a return on investment for you if you're in a business point of view. I do think some hotels have really upped their game in terms of the well-being of their teams and that whole mental health area, and having sustainable lifestyles, which is it's a weird one for hospitality, because the nature of the industry is to work 16-hour days. That's kind of what used to happen when I was in hospitality. I do think that has changed slightly, probably not everywhere, but in some places where there is a little bit more intent on the well-being of people. But there is so many things to tackle in sustainability. My only recommendation to anyone wanted to get into the subject is to really read a lot about it, and then pick those things that are more important to you first and start with those, and then to try and move on to other things. And it's the same with the UN's development goals. Yes, it's an aspiration as to how we should live in the future, but there is a lot of things we can't ourselves fix, like air quality. That a lot of things need to come at government level and at policy level. So you can only fix what you can do yourself within your life or within your business or your workplace.
Yeah, good point. And Anita, I think it's a very good question. And I interviewed in the fourth interview, I interviewed a professor. So he's basically written books on sustainability in hospitality. It's Professor Dr. Willie LeGrand. And one of the things that we discussed was about, ESG is important as it is, which has ESG. But what do we do at a time when our hands are tied and we are constrained? And I think he gave a very nice analogy to say, in the short term, when actually you can't do much on other things, we should focus on the S of the ESG, which is, let's look at how are we ethical hiring? What are we doing now? As we open doors, as we're welcoming back, let's look at what's gender parity that we're having. There's so much that we could do in that space. And I think it's only as important as how we want to structure it and start measuring and reporting on it. But there is lots of, theories and papers actually on the S part and the G part of it also, Anita. So it's a good question.
Yeah. I think also it'd be interesting to see as people try and tackle all three areas, to what extent are they contradictory and to what extent are they complementary? Because actually it does feel like a lot of it's complementary. Like if you feel like you're making moves in some of these areas around the kind of people you hire and your approach to your open-mindedness towards diversity, you'll tackle some of these issues anyway by having more diversity in the workforce and more perspectives. I suppose the bigger challenge is actually, is there harder decisions to make where, what if the guest is, what if you think the guest is used to things being a certain way, and you feel like actually some of these steps you might be making around being green is tweaking the guest experience the other way. And I think Fred, I don't think can speak up because he's just sitting somewhere he can't, but he wanted me to ask about, actually, have you hotels who've found effective ways to really engage guests around their energy consumption, other than just towels in the bath and ask them to be considerate? What have you seen hotels do to bring guests on that journey so that it doesn't become a tension between meeting kind of being more sustainable and impacting the guest experience? He's just really curious to see actually, how do we make guests take more responsibility, or for responsible travel to be more part of their journey?
I think when it comes to guests, you're always going to have some guests that are very willing to join in the whole environmental sustainability conversation or sustainability conversation, but you're always going to have a certain level of people that will not, and that's okay. We're all different. The one thing I always speak to about, say, guest sort of information, it's the way we put our messages out. And I'm not sure if you've all seen probably those messages we've had for years in hotel bathrooms saying, help us save the planet, reuse your towel. and I've always, you know, that always leaves me a bit blank. Like I go, you're not going to save the planet if I reuse my towel. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's about being a lot more direct with our messaging is, and it's like, you know, reuse your towel and help us reduce energy and water. You know, we won't have to wash that many towels. But don't tell me you're going to save the planet, because straight away you're getting my back up. You know, I know you're lying to me. So it's about how we put out our green messaging to get them really involved. And it's about creating impact and aligning to those customer values. So again, you could say, if you buy a Keep cup, you can get a 30% off your next refill or for your coffee. But you could say, you know, by buying a Keep cup, you know, you're going to reduce waste by 365 cups in a year, or, you know, there's 22,000 takeaway coffee cups disposed of in the bin every single hour in Ireland. And there's even worse statistics in the UK because there is more of you. So they are the kind of messages when you give a message and you show the global impact or the nation's impact on a small thing. That's when people think about things. It's, you know, it's not about showing them, you know, this is a small thing will help us save the planet. It's really is about the larger impact that this action would have if many other people took it. And I think that's kind of what we need to learn as an industry is how our messaging will be perceived by our customers.
Yeah, I think to nudge economic for some who's actually behavior insights and learn more about how to nudge customers. I personally feel there's so much more we could do. I mean, we all hotels tend to have great loyalty programs. I mean, are we really utilizing what we have there to actually nudge customers to do a bit more? Maybe not. Maybe retailers do something better. Maybe there are some best practices we could look at other sectors to learn from. So I think that's one space. And also marketing. Can we change our marketing to showcase our green destinations? You know, there's so much more that we need to do, but I think first we need to walk the talk that we are doing, and then we need to do furthermore in terms of also educating and bringing guests along with us into sustainability.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, thank you both. Eamon, I think you've been making a couple of great comments in the chat there. Would you mind taking a moment and sharing your experience? It sounds like you got some hands-on experience with this one. Eamon, you fancy joining us? No, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry. Where next then? Who should we call on next? Anna Borley Russell. I think you had a question. Do you want to ask that?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I've got quite a lot of background noise happening at the moment, so apologies, 4-year-old in the background. Sorry if I picked up on the back end of the discussion about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and that's a real kind of big interest of mine. And I just wondered if you feel as though the industry is doing enough to address those, given that the Paris Agreement is kind of looming. I know we've still got 9 years, but that's not very long to make progress. So what are your thoughts on that? Again, apologies if you've already had this SDG discussion, but I missed it if you did.
Yeah, so to the question, is the industry doing enough? No, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, no, absolutely not. We're not doing enough about any of the Sustainable Development Goals. So again, I don't even think our governments are doing enough yet either. So, no, nobody's doing enough. It's really good to have goals, but, like any goal, there needs to be an action plan behind it, and a strategic, a smart action plan. And I don't think we're there yet as an industry or even as a nation. We're nowhere close to even have a plan in place. So.
Yeah, I think we are lagging. I think honestly, we are lagging when it comes to what do we do to achieve the goals. And also, I was talking to Raquel earlier, when we met up prior to this, that, I think it seems like investors are asking for it these days. Like, if you look at big investors like the BlackRock, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, actually, who probably sits on trillions of dollars, has now said he wants to look at sustainable investments and take climate risk into account. It's an investment risk. And, when we have big companies actually coming out and saying, this is important for us, And I think that's when it starts trickling down, top, bottom. And that's where I think hopefully we get closer to achieving these goals. But otherwise, we are still quite lagging behind in terms of the Paris Agreement and even our own hotel goals.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Charlotte, you had a question you wanted to ask and a couple observations I see you've been making. Great to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. Time is passing incredibly fast today with this huge topic. It's great to hear all these information already. Yeah, I've had a question maybe directed to Radhika as well, because you mentioned food waste at the beginning of the talk. I have experienced it so many times already, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Every time it really hurts me to see it, that all this food is being thrown away, and there seems to be no real solution for it because there are so many health and safety and hygiene regulations going on. So obviously hotels have to stick to those, but I'm just wondering, there must be some kind of solution to reduce this waste in the future. I don't know if you have any experience or have seen examples of what is done, like maybe in different countries regarding food waste, or in the UK, I know there is a lot of regulations and lots of hygiene procedures that it is hard to not waste the food. But yeah, just curious about your thoughts. And yeah, other than that, with regards to the guest engagement question, I have stayed in hotels. I wrote it in the comments as well, but I've stayed in hotels that have worked with like flyers or information papers regarding sustainability. And I always think that really helps. Like, I actually, if I see something like that, I take it and I read through it if they design it in a fun way. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that into the room as well. And at my current hotel, we actually eliminated turn down service to reduce it's not a waste, but we just don't want to offer the service of like exchanging towels twice a day and then get them all cleaned twice a day basically. And it's just trying to reduce the usage of towels and laundry and all of that. Yeah.
Awesome. Any thoughts on that? I guess any top tips on food waste?
I might just answer that question if that's okay. So we've a team of 90 people altogether, and the kitchen food and beverage is a huge part of our business. So there's actually a really good video if you type into YouTube, and it's food waste with Monaghan County Council, which is an area in Ireland. But basically, they show the food being money, and it's actually arriving in a delivery truck. Some of you might have seen it already. And the chef cutting it up and then putting it into the oven, and then the money going into the bin and then being pushed out with the waste disposal company collecting it. So it's a really powerful video. So right from the start, ordering is key, not over ordering, and portion size is critical. We would have changed our plate size. We used to do carvery, and we used to do huge numbers for carvery. And we actually changed our style of service for lunch last year, and we changed it to a la carte, and that has made a big difference on our food waste. We'd also look at like putting on specials, and lots of hotels do this, but putting on specials to use up what needs to be used up. And I'll give you a good example. Yesterday we were open for St. Patrick's Day. For our cafe is only open on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays for takeaway at the moment. And at the end of the day, I got sent a photo on the WhatsApp group for the hotel, and it showed a picture of before and after. And at the end of the day, shelves were nearly empty. And there was a time when I would have thought, that doesn't look right, that the shelves are nearly empty. The shelves should always look full. But we're not open today, so it's much better that the shelves are empty and there's not food sitting there, going off. So they're just some of the examples that we've also, like, we segregate waste in the kitchen, and we compost a small amount of food waste, but we're in the process of getting quotes for a proper food composter that will make a significant difference to the amount of waste that we're generating, which is still frightening.
Yeah, fascinating. I think that food waste piece is huge, right? I think there's a couple of partners I've worked with who are doing, kind of scanning waste in huge quantities. Again, typically you're talking big conference centers and events venues, but scanning that waste and separating it automatically could be, but obviously for much bigger venues.
Yeah,
There's also programs like Too Good to Go, right, where you're seeing a lot more where restaurants are able to kind of shift food at the end of the day. So I guess each of these are baby steps, right? And maybe you need a plan for the whole business, each step of that guest journey and each step of your food production, from purchasing through to operations through to waste. You probably need to take steps in each area to bring it all down. Is that fair to say, Orny?
Yeah, we have a polytunnel. We upgraded our polytunnel from a 20-foot to a 50-foot polytunnel 2 years ago, and we grow about €6,000 of produce there a year. And it's great because at the start of the year, the chef will tell the gardener exactly what he wants to have grown in the polytunnel, and then it's a great story to tell on your menu and to use herbs for cocktails, and it's just reducing waste as well because you're picking it as you need it, and it's also reducing miles for the suppliers who are traveling. But I just had a couple of things actually I just wanted to say. I've been quiet up to now, but I used to work in the Dorchester Hotel in London years ago, 2002 to 2005, and amazing hotel. But I stayed in a 5-star hotel last year, and guests' expectations have changed. The underfloor heating was on in this 5-star hotel in Dublin, and it was uncomfortably hot, and it was frustrating to see that waste of energy. So I think more and more people are feeling like that, and I know that the hotel in Dublin, they probably felt that my expectations are that it was on, but it's just I think more and more people are changing their expectations. We have 120 weddings booked this year at Hotel Doolin, and for every wedding that we host, we plant 10 native trees locally. And so in the last 3 years, we planted just over 2,000 trees, and each tree offsets 1 ton of carbon in its lifetime. We had one couple who actually traveled from America, and they worked out what their carbon footprint, what the carbon footprint was for their journey, and they actually planted more trees at Moyhill Community Farm to offset their journey from America. And it's great to be doing Zooms today where we don't have to travel to the UK to, continue to, it's much better.
Yeah, perfect. I was also thinking about the digital world that we're living in now is that we can be exposed to so many more ideas, right? The chance for you to speak to this audience from Dubai to the UK to the US, I think is huge as well. So two topics kind of came up there. One tees up Nicola in a lovely way to talk about kind of the supply chain. Nicola, you got a great question on procurement.
Yes, I was just conscious that sometimes when you go into a hotel, you might find that there's Irish butter in Scotland, or you've got strawberries from Egypt, that type of thing, and everything should be bought locally. But you find with the very big hotels that they're all tied up in deals so that they get huge volume discounts. So I don't know whether that's ever going to be able to change without people losing vast quantities of money. But I think that people like to come down to breakfast and see that everything's sustainably produced and being delivered from a local area, and that I think that's becoming more and more prevalent when people choose what type of hotels they want to go into. They want to know where the steak came from, and which farm and farm to fork, etc. Where do you see that going in the future in terms of the procurement? To both of you, Raquel and
I think that's definitely a trend that has been growing in the last year or two. You see, and we encourage a lot of hotels to have this sort of, to try and create like, depends where you are, you could create a 30-mile radio menu. And you can, it's not all about spending more money because it's more expensive with your local suppliers. It's also about coming behind the idea that all those local suppliers are people of your community. and they are going to appreciate your business and also come to your business then maybe to have their dinner because you're providing their chicken or their beef. So it's this whole idea again of collaboration amongst the community, and that, you know, a larger business like a hotel can invest on the small local producers. Customers would love it, producers will get a living out of it, and they will also become your loyal customers and your biggest supporters. So I do think that trend has increased a little bit, obviously not as much as we like it to be. But I mean, there is nothing better to go to a hotel and hear, you know, see on the menu a suppliers page and see that their 10 major suppliers are local businesses. I personally love it. I know a lot of people love it. I know my food is probably going to be fresher, probably healthier as well if it comes from a small supplier rather than from a big, you know, strawberry farm in Egypt. So yeah, I think green procurement is another area that really we need to look at, because it's good for your customers, it's good for your community, it is good for the food that you're eating, and even our own health. I am firm believer that the food chain has been compromised in many ways. You know, there is pesticides, there is castrogenics inserted into our fruit and veg. And when you buy from a smaller farmer, you know, you can rest assured that they are more than likely a lot less contaminated than other produce. And just a quick point on the food waste issue. I heard a chef, he's a zero waste chef, and I heard the chef say one time that when it comes to food waste, you should question everything. Nothing in this world should be food waste. And he had a really good point. And there is so many different ways to use food for different dishes or even sauces, that in a hotel we have an opportunity to have a paramount of different offerings and not to waste any of the food that we're buying. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
And
I think I agree with you.
Go for it. Not sure why it does that when you speak already. Go for it.
When you speak from Dubai, there's always lots of back noise. I was just saying, you know, because food waste has been very close to my heart, you know, I've always looked at what's the best way for food waste. And when I speak to consultants or when I look at hotels, I think the best thing is to follow the food pyramid. It's almost reduce, reuse, repurpose your food. And then if you can't do much, then rot. And I think it's very important to keep the hygiene of the pyramid. So reduction is the key. And like Raquel said, it should be all about, like, you know, what you're trying to do. But also on other side of the food, when you talk about, I'm looking at time and I'm trying to speed up my thoughts here. But, you know, when you look at procurement, it's so important to see that we actually don't have enough knowledge in this area. Like, you know, I sit in Dubai and, you know, when I look around me, is it sustainable to actually spend liters of water producing strawberries here? Or is it sustainable to just have them imported from, you know, where it's maybe economical to produce? And we just don't have enough knowledge at this time to actually put 2 and 2 together and tell us what's the carbon miles for producing it locally versus freezing it and bringing it here. And I think that's where we need more technology and more solutions that customers can understand, that industry can adapt, is my thought when it comes to procurement.
I think it's a great point. I think
but I also saw actually one thing which really surprised. Sorry, James, I was just saying it really surprised me, and I think it really inspired me, was hydroponics. Like, you know, I'm seeing lots of farms come up here in Middle East, and I saw a few in India too. So like, you know, hotels are actually doing their own vertical farming. And I don't think you guys need it so much, but where there is a necessity, it's beautiful to see those farms come up. And so they're able to pluck, and actually we have it in the supermarkets too. So I walk into a Carrefour supermarket and they actually have a hydroponics section where you can go pick up straight lettuce and put in a basket and walk out. So I think it's changing, but we need more such technology, I suppose. That's it, James.
No, I think that I didn't mean to interrupt at all. It's a great point. I think, Raquel, you started with, like, we just need to be able to measure our own impact. And now we're talking about, we need to be able to put that in front of our guests and our suppliers and all of our stakeholders. So last question for me really is, who holds the power? Because, you know, again, there's a sense of, do all customers want locally sourced food? Do owners want that if it has an impact on margin? I'd love to, if this is going to create a sea change, we've all said the industry's not doing enough. Who are those stakeholders you think that will really drive this agenda? Is it the workforce coming through? Is it leadership? Is it owners? Is it corporate customers, leisure customers? I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on who holds the power and how do we change that conversation in 2021 as the industry looks to recover? to Raquel.
For me, who holds the power, and it kind of goes back to what I've kind of said before, is that each person, each individual holds the power, holds the power of their own life and their own life decisions. So as a customer, you can choose to go to a hotel with green credentials or to a hotel with no green credentials. As a hospitality worker, you can choose to continue doing things the way they have been done all the time, or you can advocate for change and try and introduce some green in our environmental or sustainability into your business. Same for business owners, same for everybody. I think every person is in power of their own destiny in their own lives and what carbon emissions they produce and how they view the other sustainability goals like equality. It's you can only change yourself. And I think it all starts with changing oneself. And I think, even myself, I still have a lot of changes to make. And I bang on about this to people all the time for the last 5 years. And my life is still not fully sustainable. So, I think we all have the power to change what we're doing within our own lives and hopefully our workplaces. And the more people that adopt that kind of mentality and makes their own changes, the more this will seep into all of our industries and our workplaces.
Love it.
Wow.
Radhika?
The whole debate by itself. It's a whole debate by itself, James. You've just opened up the question and you've said which one at the end of it, because I can't tell you. I mean, I did a poll recently on my platform to say, and we had a couple of options there. And, as everyone believes, it's the consumers. It is the consumers was the top answer. But I doubt, actually. I mean, I doubt that it's only up to the consumer, because at the moment, if you look at surveys that have come out, consumers, the booking.com survey said 94% of consumers actually want to see the change. But are we actually doing it? Are we actually placing our vote to what we're saying? I think that's one. And also, I think we need regulations. I think for speed to happen, for speed to be accelerated, we need regulations and we need industry to. So it's quite a tough one, James. It's hard for me to say which ones.
No worries,
it's actually who holds the more power.
Yeah, really appreciate that. It was a whole topic in itself, so that's absolutely fine. So we're going to wrap it up there. But the last thing I'll say, well, second last thing I'll say is we actually have a new approach for groups on Atollo. You may have noticed that we have a group section. Some of them are organizations. We've got a few open community groups. Those are going to get a complete revamp in the next couple of weeks. And they're going to be led by champions. They're going to be led by someone who's super passionate about a topic and wants to take it forward to make sure it's got fresh content, answers questions, leads the debates. Really excited that Raquel has offered to take the lead on a sustainability group with her and her team. So if you're passionate about this topic, watch for that space explode on Atollo in the coming weeks. Really excited about it. As a bit of a test, if you go onto Atollo under the Discuss Ideas tab, I've just created a kind of thread on sustainability. What do we think of some of those topics and themes? What questions, what answers do we have on this space? So if you've got further questions, you've got further thoughts, you just want to flag to Raquel you're interested in this space, jump onto myatollo.com, go to Discuss Ideas and just leave a couple of thoughts on that thread. Definitely want to continue this discussion. It sounds like we've covered a bit of a huge conversation covering all of ESG, and I would be really excited to take that forward. So that's kind of what I'd share there. And if anyone else wants to lead any other groups on any other topic, come and find Bill or I, because the whole point is we're setting up groups that are led by champions and want to do fun things around building articles and sharing thoughts and leading provocative discussions. So I'll leave that with you. Last thing to say is a huge thanks to our co-hosts, Raquel and Radhika. Loved hearing your perspective. Good luck with your respective projects. I think that pushing into education, uplifting the kind of knowledge we have across the industry, tackling this huge topic, I think is really critical. And thank you for everyone for being so lively at this time on a Thursday as well, whether it's super late for you out in the Middle East, like it is with you, Radhika, or you've got a day's work ahead of you over in the US, or you're ready for a G&T or a glass of wine or something soft here in Europe. Thank you for everyone. Have a fab week. Next week, we're tackling the world of events, meetings and events, virtual, real. We've got a great session with that student hotel company, a great session with Cvent, who are giants in this space. Should be a great one. But have a safe week, and we'll see you all then, and see you on Atollo. Thanks, everyone.